This is Mile High.
Do I want to tell the story or do I want to show the message?
You've got a lot of work to do between Mile High.
The time has come where we can know
we have a responsibility, an ethical and moral responsibility.
We have to do it better in order to move people along.
Above, down, inside out.
If you get your mind right, it is not. It is a receiver of thought. Because love is my first technique.
it's now time for the show.
Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles, coming to you from Mile High altitude, 5,280 feet. For whatever altitude you are at, we are so excited to have you with us. Make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High tick. And of course, make sure you hit register to join us in Mile High in September. There's nowhere else you want to be in September other than Mile High altitude. Today, we are super excited to have on the podcast the one and only Alessandra Colon. And she, for people know her recently for all of a sudden being on TLC's Crack Addicts TV show, representing our profession. At the young age of 14, she was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer, and she, with a 25% chance to live, overcame that, survived, and then thrived. She went into Palmer College of Chiropractic in Daytona, Florida, and served in the Dominican Republic and India, offering free chiropractic care to over 4,000 people. She's really been an incredible spokesperson and model for chiropractic, representing it incredibly well on the TV show, and we're excited to have her with us today. Thank you for being here, Dr. Alessandra.
Thank you so much for having me. I always get excited for these.
Well, we're excited to have you. And, you know, I think it'd be fun to start with helping people get to know you personally a little bit. How did you find out? You went in a direction of health and well-being after your challenges that you navigated as a teenager. How did you find the world of chiropractic specifically through that?
I come from a family of all medical doctors, and oddly enough, I call myself a mutt. I am full-blooded Puerto Rican. I was raised in California, and then after California, I actually spent most of my life at after the Gulf War in Saudi Arabia. And I mention this because I didn't come back to the United States of America until I was probably 14, 15 years old when I found myself sick with cancer, and I just so happened to be in MD Anderson, Houston. What better place to have treatment if you're going to have cancer, right? And stage 4, nonetheless, 25% chance to live. I think at that point, I really decided that I knew I wanted to be a doctor. So I do what everybody did, right? You go to school, you get your Bachelor BS, you go through your pre-medical studies. I did my MCATs, but I wasn't happy. I felt like I was still doing things for the wrong reasons. I had a lot of complications with chemo, radiation, long-term, constipation, a lot of headaches from the radiation, weight issues, just a plethora of diagnoses, one after another, a lot of medications, and then the trauma, the toxins that we always talk about, depression. I suffered massively from depression, and having gone through what I went through and not really healing from the inside out. And a friend of mine said, "Why don't you go see a chiropractor?" And I said, what is that? First off, who goes to be a chiropractor? And number one, they're not real doctors, right? We've all heard it. So yeah. I'm like, well, this is great. I'm going to go see a quack, right? Then my friend was like, well, what do you have to lose? I guess nothing, right? So I went and actually saw a chiropractor that summer in Margate, New Jersey. He was the chiropractor for the Philadelphia Eagles. So what a great start. Treated all the athletes in AC, Atlantic City. And he was talking about these magical words. Oh, the body can heal itself, and nutrition and exercise and water. And I'm like, wow, it's funny. No one ever said those things to me. He's like, let's get you adjusted, and let's, talk about the medications you're on, and the constipation, all these things I was going through, right? I talked openly about how I was suffering. I almost had induced anorexia because I was always so full from constipation that my eating habits and then the Adderall, it was a big plethora of, a mess. Long story short, the more I got adjusted, the more I followed his advice on drinking more water and exercise, the more I healed. And one by one, I got off every medication. And I'm like, and I could think straight, and I wasn't a zombie from all the medications, and I was this energetic human being from not being constipated and having all these toxins in my body. I was like, damn, if I'm going to be a doctor, this is the doctor I'm going to be. And I was like, Mom, I'm dropping out of med school. I'm done. I'm going to go be a chiropractor. Of course, that didn't go over well, but forward, it went over well. 10 years later, we're okay.
Well, outstanding. Outstanding. So then what brought you to Palmer, Florida? It was just nearby. You were living in Florida?
Well, I had already, well, believe it or not, Hurricane Sandy hit. I was devastated everything. And I was like, well, if I'm going to go anywhere, I'm going to go where the sun doesn't stop shining. Got my little car, had nowhere to go. And I found out that Palmer was there, but then there was either California that, excuse me, I was like, I'm not going to go to the West Coast. Rent's too high. I can't afford that on student loans. Surely not going to Iowa. I am brown skinned. I can't freeze my butt off. So Florida. Florida it is. And I can study on the beach. So I signed up for Palmer, Florida.
So now, as you said, as we were talking before starting the podcast, you didn't expect a year and a half ago to be where you are now. Can you share a little bit about the journey of this gift of doing the show? How that ended up to come into fruition?
There's two parts of the story, right? I think there's one part that was, a 10-year journey of being an authentic chiropractor, being authentic to my patients, patient care and satisfaction, and what that looks like in business acumen, as well as a professional chiropractor, right? So I think I always had a wonderful reputation. And I take my client and my patient care like very, very, very seriously. And that transformed into TikTok, and TikTok transformed into a video on period cramps, I believe it was. And it hit like 17 million views in 24 hours.
Wow.
And of course, I'm this silly doctor thinking, well, that's the one that hits the period cramp one? Like, okay, all right. And I get an email basically saying that TLC wants to do the first national chiropractic series in the world. And they would love to have me. And I deleted the email because that's what I would normally do, because it's a joke. Nobody actually gets an email. And so I just deleted it. 2 weeks later, I hear back from the producers, hey, we haven't heard from you. We're really interested in having you on TLC. Please give us a call back. And I kind of scroll through it and I see that it's from Warner Brothers. And that's when I was like, well, maybe they're serious. Let me check out if these people are real,
Wow.
I mean, do you or a loved one want to be on Dr. Oz paid programming? I don't know. That's what I think. And sure enough, they did a couple series of interviews on Zoom meeting, and that led into a pilot, and the pilot led to the show. They weren't completely sold on chiropractic because, of course, we're not real doctors.
Right.
I'm a smart ass.
Well, and like, I totally know what you mean by having one of those kinds of emails and think it's someone that's selling you something or whatever, right? And so it's a natural response. Now, being a chiropractor and wanting to be, saying an authentic chiropractor and being in the Palmer heritage, for you, did it feel like a lot of responsibility to represent the profession?
I think at the time, right, I was like, sure, I'm so excited. This is awesome. I get my first televised series and wow, I'm pioneering this. But then you're right. Then it's about to come time to shoot it. And by the way, I find out when I am 8.5 months pregnant that they're going to go through with the show. And
wow.
when they're going to film, I'm like, guys, I'm about to have a baby. Like, I can't stop this thing from coming out of me. So when are we going to film? And they said, we're going to film in January. And I'm like, I'm doing the math. I'm like, guys, I'm going to be 6 weeks postpartum. Like, you're kidding me? Like, that's all we can do. And so I'm like, all right. But then I start to freak out. How to represent the chiropractic profession? Am I going to do a good job? Am I philosophy based enough? Am I scientific enough? Am I this enough? Am I ML enough? Am I this, am I pediatrician? How do you possibly take all the facets of what an adjustment is, the science behind it, the philosophy about it, and make it so that everyone would be proud in the profession, right? because that's one of the unique things about chiropractic. There's so many different ways to adjust. There's Atlas orthogonal, SOT, activator, whatever it might be, right? And everybody has their own philosophy on how to get our patients better, right? And I'm like, how the hell am I going to illustrate chiropractic care on national TV? And it was a huge dialogue and a huge fear that I had, because I wanted to do our profession well. And I think overall, the response was absolutely sensational. And for that, I'm so proud. And I get more emails and texts on a daily basis from chiropractors all over because of your show. A patient walked in my door. Then I did my job.
Right.
I did something right where people got the message enough to walk into a chiropractor's office anywhere in the nation. That's pretty dang awesome.
Right. Right. Well, I know the feeling in putting on the Mile High Chiropractic annual event. I come from a chiropractic family, and, I think, well, we stand on the shoulders of others. I know you think that often. And I feel like there's a stewardship that really pressure of making sure they're representing chiropractic well. So, and then doing that on the audience level that you had, I could imagine that was certainly something in there, especially when you say about being an authentic chiropractor and wanting to be that, and saying, and having how all the different eyes and perspectives of chiropractic, which are so multifaceted, how you do that. So, and I think you really did a great job at doing that. It would be a lot of pressure. So curious, when you say being an authentic chiropractor, what does that really mean to you?
It means a lot of things for me because, listen, we're already judged enough as we are chiropractors, right? It's like,
right.
God, I passed 4 board certified exams and I'm still not considered a physician, right? And then you think about the history of chiropractic. We've been around since 1895, but we didn't really get, permission to be physicians until we won against AMA in 1992? So we're fairly new in the eyes of our audience, right? But when you think about that, I also want to do a good job, and I might not be everybody's cup of tea, right? I am a little bit silly. I am a little bit goofy. I'm not this, straight laced doctor. I take my hat off sometimes. I'm their friend. I am their leader. I'm their boss. Sometimes I'm not the creme de la creme with 15,000 certifications, right? I'm who I am. And at the base of that too, I'm also female. So guess what? I'm not strong enough. I'm not powerful enough. But then I'm also Latina. So I'm this, but then I'm young. So I'm not educated enough, right? So I'm constantly juggling all these facets of what people think I should be and how I should act. So when I wanted to say that I'm my authentic self, it's because I'm no longer in a spotlight where I'm trying to fit into a mold of what people want me to be and how I should be received. And I should be this, serious white coat physician. No, I'm me. And I present myself that way to my patients. I'm an expert at what I do. But you know who the best expert is in the room? That innateness that my patient has, that I listen to. That's the expert. And that's being authentic to who I am.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. So how now doing this TV show, how has the publicity affected your practice? Maybe negatively, maybe positively on both sides of that.
Again, I've been blessed. I say that who I am authentically has gotten my career to where I was at for the first 10 years, right? I see 700 patients a month, and I'm happy about that. That was easy for me to do. But this TLC catapulted me to 2 different universes. One, now I have to be a physician that is wonderful at diagnosing, right? Because now I have extreme cases. I have people coming in from all over the world thinking that I'm going to heal them in one adjustment and they're out the door. Harry Potter, right? And I'm getting TIAs and I'm getting dystonias and dystaxias and everyone who thinks that I'm going to be this wizard, right? So it's really up to my game as a physician, right? And I've really had to pay attention and not get monotonous in how I study my courses, even relying on my mentors, co-management of my patients. So in that sense, it's challenged me in such a good way, right? To the same regard, it catapulted my office as well. Now I need associates. I have moved from 1,100 square feet to 4,000 square feet. And by the way, because of those complicated cases, not everybody's a chiropractic candidate. So I started a med spa, right? Right, because maybe they need some of the semi-glutides to lose the weight to control their low back pain and then become a chiropractic candidate. Maybe they need the physical therapy. Maybe they need the Botox because the adjustments for their migraines weren't working and this is a better route for them. Maybe I can't adjust them because they have brain stimulators, but we can do the physical therapy portion, exercise, or the shock wave, or the spinal decompression. I've made my office a one-stop shop because of the complicated cases that I'm getting, right? So all around, it's not only catapulted my life, my diagnostic skills, but also literally my office as well. It's wild. Not to mention my actual life and family life.
Well, I would imagine that that's different, especially with a newborn.
Oh yeah, right? I'm a new mom. I'm a brand new CEO, and I'm speaking all over the world now, on top of a TV show and on top of all this expansion. And I don't take it for granted, but it's a lot of work and a lot of blessings.
Well, and that's that, when there's a new instability that can bring growth. So, and even if it's a gift, it then, has to stretch you in many ways, but that's how growth happens. So, people, other chiropractors might look at you, want to follow, or, not emulate, but, go in the direction of being more of a public image. What recommendations might you have for others that want to maybe do something on TV on their local station or have greater publicity in the media or things like that?
One, social media is a crazy, I could do an entire CE educational course on social media because there's so many facets of it, right? Know your platform, do your research. What does your research look like? Every platform has different algorithms. And by the way, those algorithms are completely evolving. Here's the funny part. Especially for larger practice. Guys, I hate social media. This is the funny part about it. I'm not somebody who can, I can't, I don't have, when do I have the time? But
Right.
It's now become a necessary evil in a sense. I was worried about social media because it took out my purpose and it took out my presence in my family and in my work life.
Right.
And now I have to. So now I make time for it, right? Schedule it in. Say, hey, on Tuesdays from 1 to 2, I'm going to come in with my uniform and we're going to do 10 videos back to back so you can do it. I delegate it to someone, by the way, because it's not my thing. So if you're going to do social media, if you're going to go out in the community, learn to delegate things that might be your weaknesses, right? Because it surely is my weakness, even though people think it's my strength. That's the funny part about this.
Mm-hmm. I have the same thing. Yeah, I have the same thing. Well, what about if people want to get in the media, in television or other things in their local or newspapers? Because I know you've had a number of newspaper publications on you. Like if people want to stretch in that area.
Don't be afraid to ask. Invite them to everything, right? I think a lot of times we think that they're not going to be, we're not going to get that reciprocated attention from the Palm Beach Post in my area or WPTV or CBS. Invite them in. Invite them in when you have your open house. Reach out to them, right? Find out who in your local area would like to hear about your chiropractic stories. Tell them about your chiropractic stories, your journeys. Make it so they can't say no to you. Because my mom used to say something. She used to say, if they're telling you no, you're talking to the wrong person. Someone is going to say yes. And all it takes is one yes. And after that, guess what? Everyone else follows. It's 5
Love
yeses.
it. That's such a good reminder for people.
Go for it.
So now, I read a couple things where you had mentioned don't focus just on, don't limit chiropractic to musculoskeletal. What role does the subluxation adjustment, since you talked about an adjustment, how much it changed your life in the early, on your chiropractic journey, what role does the subluxation and adjustment play in chiropractic?
I mean, it's everything, right? Because we're doctors of the nervous system. So that's always my start. That's always my foundation is always a subluxation. It's always the musculoskeletal system, right? But I don't limit to that because we talk about this, the 3 T's, trauma, toxins, thoughts, right? But I think sometimes as chiropractors, we rely on that subluxation so much that we forget about putting the rest of the puzzle pieces together and we get monotonous in the way that we treat. Maybe we get not monotonous in the type of chiropractor, right? I'm SOT, so I'm only going to do SOT. I'm activator, so I'm only going to do activator. I'm ML, so I'm only going to do ML. Don't forget sometimes that you got to think outside of the box and have a bag of tools, right? And that bag of tools is also nutrition and exercise and co-management with other physicians, your referrals, and those referrals better be in alignment with how you practice, right? So that's what I mean about getting outside of that musculoskeletal and getting a little bit further. Maybe it's modalities. I love shockwave. I'm obsessed with shockwave in my office. It's selling like crazy. Maybe it's the pillow that you sell. Okay. It's all encompassing, right? And maybe it said, hey, it's not a chiropractic patient. Let me not even deal with subluxation and let me refer out to so-and-so, right? We have to be able to set those standards too. Not everybody is for us.
Now, what role do you feel chiropractic plays for the everyday person who walks into your office?
Now, I'll argue this all day long. If you have stress, you're a chiropractic patient, right?
Yeah.
But then you never know. Maybe they have fusions from top to bottom and they're not a chiropractic patient, although I'd probably argue that too. We can do activator. We can do drops. We can do a lot of other things that don't have to be high velocity. And also that comes down to patient education, right? I think we get stuck in our ways and we forget to educate the patient that there's so many ways that we can adjust. There's so many ways to have patient involvement. So when it comes down to any patient for me, I'd like to say 100% is a chiropractic patient, but I have come across some no's. I have because I can't. I mean, I just had a guy in here with brain stimulators and I'm not going to go rotating through wires in his brain. Okay, let's deal with some areas below and above and take it easy, low force, right? And we did see some improvements, right? So I think everybody needs the maintenance. Again, it's about prevention, maintenance, and in some cases correction if the patient adheres to the treatment plan. If you push them to do their best, right? But they have to do their homework too.
and absolutely. Now, what is at the center of chiropractic for you in terms of chiropractic philosophy? What's at the center of that?
Corrective care, ultimately, for me, right? Because I know that's the standard that gets my patient the best. But also at the heart and the root of it all, despite corrective care, I have patients I know that I can only get to a certain level. So I do think there's also a place for maintenance and wellness, right? So because I'm not going to make Joe Schmo, not paralyzed and get off a wheelchair, no matter how much corrective care plan I do, no matter how much that is my philosophy in selling those care plans, because I know that's what's going to get the best results. I know that's what's going to shift their cervical spine on X-ray. So, but again, I'm limited too, right? And I have to be realistic with what I can deliver to my patient, despite my philosophy, right?
Mm-hmm. So now, one of the things so many chiropractors struggle with is juggling home practice, personal life. When you become a chiropractor, you don't realize necessarily, especially when you're an owner of a practice as compared to working with one, how big a picture that is. What are some tips that you had to, new baby, family, you got propelled forward in that? What were some things that, maybe created stress and how you navigated them to juggle all the things?
I'm always going to tell you first to sit down with yourself. Sit down with yourself, put pen to paper, figure out your strengths and your weaknesses. Is that finances for you? Is that social media for you? Is that talking to people? Is that you're not a leader and you're better off as a manager? I don't know what it might be, but this is how first you start to delegate, right? Then once you delegate, you can do the things that you're good at and your strengths, right? I'm a phenomenal leader. I'm really good with this. I'm really good. So I went from a team of 3 to 12.
Wow.
But I knew my numbers. I'm great with money. Maybe you're not great with money. So hire somebody who is. You want growth in your practice. You want to be an owner. You want to be able to be, maybe you want more time with your child at home and that takes you away from your practice and you need an associate. You got to know your numbers. Right? Because if I need more time with my baby at home, I need an associate. How many adjustments do I need to do to cover my associate? Right? And maybe I'm spending too much money on toilet paper. Maybe I'm spending too much money on on social media. Maybe my payroll is this. Maybe I need to shift my cash practice altogether. Maybe I need to invite insurance in, PI in, right? There's so many different ways you can juggle that, but you have to delegate and you got to know your overhead costs at all times. That's the big game.
Right.
Because that
Right.
may be the freedom you're looking to achieve, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of times people run a chiropractic office like a hobby instead of like a business.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, they don't teach us that, right?
Right.
They don't. But and again, I learned business one because I failed so many times. And by
Right.
the way, because I was forced to, I had no other choice. I had to move forward because I was projected into this big universe of chiropractic within a year. So
Mm-hmm.
easy to sink or swim. Guess what? I'm going to figure out a way to survive. Period in a story. And it means delegate, delegate, delegate. And it is hard because there were times where I cried and I thought I lost myself. I just had a baby. I wanted to be present. And the last thing I wanted to do was go build a 4,000 square foot place with 12 employees. That's the huge overcost. But you figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think you're the only chiropractor that found themselves in tears around around building an office. I know I did at some point, multiple points.
Yeah.
So, or anybody that built a business. So now, in the bigger picture of healing, what we talk about, the nerve system being focused. What role do you feel the nerve system supports adaptivity?
You mean everything? Sorry. I'm like, where do I even start with that one? It's everything, right? Our nervous system is being shut down by the amount we work, right? The physical load, the stress load that we have, the mental load that, maybe you're in a poor relationship, maybe you're not happy with your work involvement. All these things compile and put pressure on the nervous system so that we're not functioning as our optimal self. And that's just the truth, right? And the more that we can unleash portions of that, whether for me it's yoga, for me it's also tennis, for me it's time with my family, right? These are ways on top of the chiropractic adjustment. And by the way, I also do massage therapy. These are ways that I reduce inflammation of my nervous system. And so that I can ultimately be a better chiropractor. I don't want to be, guys, you don't know this, but I got hit by an 18-wheeler and it changed my life. And that's when I really knew the power of my nervous system, right? Because prior to that, I never had migraines. I never had extrusions, bulges. And I would come to work and I was miserable. After 50 adjustments, my neck was like, oh my God. And I wouldn't let anybody touch me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I needed someone who could deliver a good adjustment. I actually needed a pool. I needed decompression. I needed all these things. And I realized that I needed to incorporate other things to reduce inflammation in my spine and get back to basics and get back to that nervous system, right? And that became massage therapy for me in compilation with chiropractic. The musculoskeletal was really important for me to reduce inflammation of my nervous system. And I started functioning as a better version of myself. I haven't had pain and a migraine in, I don't know, 3 years. And when I do, I know exactly what to do. Go to my chiropractor, get a massage, and I'll be okay. That's my recipe, right?
Amazing.
But that's the only way I can reduce inflammation on my nervous system. The only way that I can do it.
So I'm not sure if you're aware of this. You very well may be. You probably are. The shift in the chiropractic profession from being a male-dominated profession to the number of women that are in chiropractic school is phenomenal in the last 5 years. Actually, Sherman College, I don't know about the other schools, but I served on the board of trustees for Sherman for a while. Sherman College is now more women enrolled than men, it's the first school that has happened, which is amazing. When I was in chiropractic school, it was like 80-20 male to female. So it's a huge shift. So you are also acting really as a great role model for women as chiropractors. What are your feelings about women as chiropractors, leaders, and having that gift of that shift in the profession?
I think some are going to agree to disagree with me on this, but I always say what's on my mind. I am a female practicing office. I do have shining stars. So yes, I would hire a male. It's not that I don't want to, but I do think there is a different dialogue with females when we get out of chiropractic college. I don't have big biceps. I don't have these enormous triceps to power through a pool and to power through, my supine diversified. So I really have to have speed, one, right? Which we would all agree on at least. And number two, I'm very petite. So I really have to learn how to utilize my body, my positioning, very different than a man would, where I think that they could use a little bit more strength on that side that I don't have. So when I get these, which actually my associate's a graduate of Kaiser, I actually coach her on how to utilize and position her body with patients. And it is so, they're going to kill me for this. It is so different from what they learn in school, right? It's school and real world. And I'll go get adjusted. Actually, my favorite chiropractor is a guy. And then I have another one that's a female. And the adjustment's very, very different. And it's the placement of your boobs. It's the placement of your body and how to use your weight to deliver more speed. It's law of physics when you become a female for me. And I'm really, 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 really crazy about coaching my female chiropractors in here and utilizing their body properly. And maybe some of my family just want to do activator. That's fine too. But you want to have a powerful manual adjustment, you got to learn how to use your body as a woman. For me,
and I think it's an amazing shift that women are embracing being entrepreneurs in the chiropractic profession. It's a great career move and path for a woman, which is really amazing to see that.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be surprised at all the things that I coach my associate on. And I'm like, hey, just push them. It'll be easier on your body to do this, right? Don't power through with that push. Get a pull, put your center of gravity here. It's all these little things. And she's like, wow, that felt so good.
Now, also, you told me about a new honor that you just had just before we that you were bestowed upon, which is phenomenal with a cover. Can you share about that?
Well, I did just get off the Today Show 2 weeks ago. And about, was that yesterday? That was yesterday. I got the cover of Global Women's Magazine. It is the largest women empowerment magazine in the world, Mariella Sorella. I'm really, 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 really proud, super fortunate about that. And we have a lot of things coming up.
Well, I was going to say, what's next for Dr. Alessandra?
It's been a whirlwind. It's been a whirlwind, and I'm accepting everything as it comes because I want to do what's right and guide my profession with light and love. And so we have a lot of, I think I have over 22 speaking engagements this year.
Wow.
I don't even know how many podcasts. We stopped counting. I'm traveling a lot, trying to juggle family and balance, and also be here for my associate, make sure she's coached well and my patients are happy. So there's a lot on my plate. I just taught my first accredited course. Who would have thought, on business acumen, right? And I can't wait to see what the future holds. There is a show coming, but I have to put pause on that and tell you guys about that later.
Got it. So if we have a lot of students that listen to this, either they're on the way to chiropractic school or somewhere along the process graduating, what would be your recommendation to students today?
For prospective students, I would tell them to go in with no fear. If you're not already in chiropractic college, I think fear is at the basis of everything we do. And for those who are in school or also going to be a student, please, please, please do me the favor of indulging into everything, right? Do a little bit of the PEDS, do a little bit of the SOT, maybe go into a little bit of Atlas orthogonal, use these bag of tricks, get your radiology down, and have a vision of what you want in 5 years, right? This way, you know, when you get out, how to handle your student loans. If you want a business, if you're going to be an associate, you have a bag of tricks. Try and be all-encompassing. Soak in as much as you can from your CEs, your mentors, and your schooling, and get your hands on people. Get your hands on them. Get those adjusting skills out. If they have mission trips, go on one.
It's interesting that you say that. I was going to ask you what was your experience doing those mission trips? It's actually what I was going to ask you next. You must be reading my mind.
I was a nerd. This is the truth. Yes, guys, I had fun in college. I had fun during my chiropractic college. It wasn't like I was completely stuck in the library. But I was that person. I wanted to try every club in school, okay, because I wanted to have a bag of trips. tricks. I also was really close to my mentors. And I did a lot of internships. Guys, in my summers, I went to any chiropractor I could on the weekend or on a Thursday afternoon or Tuesday morning to go shadow them. And I did the mission trips. I did 3 mission trips. Why? Let me tell you something. Clinical and the real world are so different. And how you handle your adjustments and your skill sets, that's really what's going to teach you. I don't care what anybody says. You know when they told you in school to palpate this and you said, I know what exactly what it is? I didn't know what the hell it was. Did any of us? None of us knew, right? It wasn't until I started putting my hands and going on these mission trips and doing the masses and adjusting the masses. And back then, I think I did seated diversified. I did some Gonstead. And I practiced the mastery of my hands, right? Those mission trips were golden in getting real world technique down. And I think that's what really escalated my adjustment skills, especially as a female.
Wow. Wow. Phenomenal.
Awesome.
So, last thing I like to ask, is there a favorite chiropractic mantra or favorite chiropractic saying that you really love?
I wouldn't say it's a chiropractic saying.
Okay.
It is a mantra that I love in general that I've had for 11 years.
Go for it.
I always say, I say, success is never owned, it's rented, and rent is due every day. And
So
I've had
true.
that on my wall since the day I became associate to owning my own practice to a now CEO. I've worked for it.
That's true. That's true. That's a really valuable one. So I want to thank you for being on here, and also I really loved before we got started to record and start the podcast how much you said about service and how much you said with the responsibility of where you've been as a physician really touched my heart, and I know it'll touch other people's heart here. Before we wrap up, is there any other message you want to share to our chiropractic audience?
Yes, to please keep. This journey has taught me so much about who I am, and there's no way I could have possibly gotten to where I'm at without all of you and what's currently going on and what's currently evolving. And I stay true to that. So thank you so much for supporting me. Keep liking, keep following, keep shining light so that I can be a beacon of light for us, because that's the only way I can do this is really through you guys putting the attention on chiropractic, because that's what it's all about, right? Spreading the word of chiropractic. And I will make sure, God is my witness, that we get the purpose of chiropractic out there.
Yes, absolutely. And really, again, your message of service and community and taking care of your lives that are coming into your office was really very special as I was talking to you. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for taking your valuable time to be on this podcast episode. Thank you everybody for listening. Remember to hit subscribe and never miss any Mile High Tick. And clear your calendar to be at Mile High Altitude in September. Rise up with us by going riseup2milehigh.com. And that's where you get all the details for the 2024 Mile High 12. I can't even believe it. It's the 12th year of this. So thank you so much again, Dr. Alessandra, and keep changing spines and lives with chiropractic.